I'd like to thank you for coming. My name is Laura Biason, Director of Club Degli Orafi, Italia. We are here to talk about the first 9 months of 2024. What is the sentiment of entrepreneurs for this year? We also would like to talk about a very important subject connecting us with the opening ceremony, where young people were mentioned. We are here to talk about generation change. We are here to have two analyses presented. The first by Intesa Sanpaolo, who have a data bank of 70,000 companies. And the second is the outcome of a questionnaire we circulated. We'll have a professor from the Economics Center and the University of Padua. I'm not going to spoil that. And then we have an excellent presenter, who is Andrea Buccellati, a person who needs not to be presented, the third generation of the Buccellati family, who will present a case study explaining how the generation change can be brilliantly made. Thank you very much. Let's start without further ado. We have a lot of things to be discussed. And then we'll have the networking moment to meet old and new friends so that we can talk with the speakers during the cocktail party at the end, just outside this venue. I would like to thank past President Villa and the President of Federorafi, and the Scale Director of IJ Prosperi here in the first line, and Stefania, who is here to replace Stefania Trenti. We'll have Stefania Trenti tomorrow. We have the two Stefanias, and they will be attending the second meeting of this year. And today we have Sara Giusti, who is economist at the Intesa Sanpaolo Bank. How comes that we have decided to speak about generation change? I read Italian statistics, and Italy is a super aging society, i.e. more than 20% of the population has 65 years or more. This is, flabbergasting. We all feel young, but as a matter of fact, I see that Loredana is nodding. We are all young in spirit, but, Italy is getting older and older. Japan has 29% of people with above 65. We are 24.1%, which is indeed impressive. Probably by the year 2050, that will be 35% of over 65 or the 65 plus. That means that the same phenomenon is affecting companies. The generation change is a key problem. We need to guarantee the continuity in the company. This is a process. This is not a one-step action. It requires attention and to be implemented by the right people. Today, as customary, we will hear about the data and sentiment data. And the focus we have today is on generation change. Without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Sara Giusti, who will speak with two hats. She's an economist at Intesa Sanpaolo, at the research department. And with the first hat, she will tell us how the industry is performing. At Alta Gamma in November, we heard about the luxury data. Unfortunately, luxury is not very healthy. There are sectors such as textiles and shoewear, which is not really performing. But jewelry is going under this trend. Do you agree? Yes, I fully agree with that. If we consider the jewelry system in the landscape of fashion and consider the demand drivers, what we see is that the jewelry sector is performing better than other industries. There is a slowing down of the fashion sector. Consumptions are going down. We also have overproduction immediately after the pandemic. The slowing down of consumption in China. And that has a major impact on the luxury sector. These are the first 10 months of sales and 2023 data. As for apparel, which in 2023 was performing rather well, the first difficulties emerge in 24. The jewelry sector in 23 and 24, well, the sales are growing. So all is well. But we know that the gold and jewelry sector sales are impacted by the price. If we consider production instead of sales, we see that very clearly. The gap between production and sales is widening. That means that there is an impact on price, and that shows a slowing down. The sales in the first months was plus 5.7, while production dropped by 7%. The moderator, this is something that we have feared during the analysis. Answer, yes. We heard about guided, controlled slowing down. It is there. In November, we published new data showing that there is a minus 7.1% in production. What is the driver of the growth? First, competitiveness in international markets. Changes in export are relevant, from plus 12.3% in gold jewelry in 23, while in the first 9 months of 24, there was a 44.5% plus, also guided by prices. Just consider the other industries of the fashion field. Also, there are negative changes in the international markets, 44.5%, which has to be better explained. There are factors which cannot be repeated in the future, plus 44.5 in value, and also accompanied by plus 28% in numbers. Driving factors are the increase and expansion in Turkish markets. They are the first reference market for the industry. Turkey is a logistic hub for the industry, and when there is a geopolitical crisis, their role is strengthened. Then they have import policies by the government so that semi-manufactured products are privileged. Note that apart from Turkey, the industry shows stability in exports, in value and in quantities. That shows that there is the ability to serve other markets. So this increase in Turkey, it's seen also at local level. We concentrate on 3 clusters, which are 75% of the volumes, that is Vicenza, Arezzo, and Alessandra or Valenza. Note that the exports from Arezzo in the first 9 months are nearly doubled over 23. We like to note that if we take out the role of Turkey on the right, Arezzo has a plus 7%, Vicenza from 13 to 8%. So the exports hold vis-à-vis the previous year. So that local data shows that they are able to work in other markets, for example, the Arab Emirates. Competitiveness in international markets is one of the main leverage for the sector to be competitive. Great. I take the opportunity to tell you that when speaking about diversifying markets, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, we'll have a light lunch to celebrate the 20 years, and at 2 or 3 o'clock, at 2:15, we'll meet here again to speak about the US. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. So we reconvene tomorrow.
Perché può voler dire.
It can be very interesting. Trump and all the uncertainty can certainly lead to different scenarios, forecasts. Augusto Ungarelli, of the Centro Studi Club degli Orafi, past president Vendorafa, Lombardi, and past president of Club degli Orafi, Italy. Augusto, you have analyzed the sentiment amongst the actors in the field. Relating to what Sara has just told us, how is the situation? We know that we're going through a turbulent period. We've had 67 elections last year. In the last 2 months, we have sold more than in the rest of the year. So what do entrepreneurs think about this? Well, first of all, I would like to thank Intesa Sanpaolo. We're here today after 20 years because Club degli Orafi and Intesa Sanpaolo have been able to put together different needs, giving a significant contribution for entrepreneurs, the members of Club degli Orafi. And they have also given a big contribution because they have enhanced the value of this industry, which is paramount. In critical moments, it is important to have the perception of the reality of the situation of a production system like the one we have in our country. I believe this is very important to be able to look at the future. So I would like to thank you all for supporting us in this journey. I've been here from the very beginning, and I'm very glad about that. So, following what we've heard from Sara, to answer your question, I can tell you that there are some expectations for the turnover that are positive, also compared to 2024. Companies believe that 2024 will have a positive closure, specifically for medium-large companies. The forecast is a little bit more conservative for micro and small enterprises. We're talking about the sentiment about the turnover, about the revenues. Conversely, the sentiment for 2025 is more cautious. There is more caution, but there is some cautious optimism. For sure, business will not be as good as 2024. This is what we perceive today. We concluded our survey at the beginning of December, but we got some even more recent data. The turnover of 2025 compared to 2024 will not be as good as it was in 2024, but there is great expectation from international markets. The effect of uncertainty on the turnover will also affect investment. Investment is strategic because in 2024, the two surveys we carried out highlighted a very positive trend in investment. Investment in 2024 was significant. In 2025, investment will be halved. Maybe because medium-large companies perceive the uncertainty regarding the 5.5 transition, with rules and regulations that are slowing down the business. Absolutely. There is also an adaptation to demand, which is changing. We have all experienced in the last 2 years the recovery after COVID. Italian enterprises have been able to recover in an extraordinary way. Market demand was greater than manufacturing potential, but in a very short time, companies have reacted and have achieved amazing results. Think about 2023. 2023 was an extraordinary year as far as production is concerned. So for sure, we have alternating cycles, and now we have entered a more cautious phase, a more conservative phase, brought about by the geopolitical situation, which is still very uncertain. Sara, during her presentation, was referring to the Turkish market. It's a big market that acts as a hub. In other words, all the items that are sent to Turkey are not absorbed completely by the Turkish market. The investment will take all this into due consideration. And these are the factors that will significantly influence investment. For micro and small companies, strengthening their image and their competitiveness are paramount. There will be an evolution of the domestic demand with the repositioning of an industry that certainly depends also on subcontractors. And we know that large brands and the different clusters have played a very important role in this respect. For medium to large companies, the evolution of foreign demand is the number one factor they are going to focus on. And this goes hand in hand with the introduction of new technology. And we should actually reconsider all those factors that lead towards sustainability. Sustainability embodying all different phases from design to manufacturing, all the way to traceability at the point of sale, requiring a structure and the introduction of technology, which is not just manufacturing technology, but also software and production supports.
Sicuramente
Competitive challenges, and this is a very important fact, show that the main competitors are Italian manufacturers. And this is pretty significant because competition in Italy is based on quality. Our companies produce top quality. They can innovate. They are flexible, as we have seen in the post-COVID period. So this is the ground for the competitive battle. In the different clusters, we have seen aggregations, mergers and acquisitions, development of structures which are no longer independent and artisanal, but which have become consolidated. Subcontractors of large brands, of course, compete at national level against each other. And this is another very important aspect that will affect the evolution of the Italian production structure. Which are the main difficulties? Well, the number one difficulty is the cost of raw materials. We cannot ignore the fact that from the 1st of January to the 30th of September, the price of gold has soared by 18–19%. Dr. Giusti showed us the difference between the turnover and the production, and that is accounted for by the cost of raw materials. So we still have big quantities, but export has grown significantly because of the increase in the gold price. Sure, and tomorrow we will talk about raw materials. Secondly, the worsening of domestic demand. And when I talk about domestic demand, I mean the domestic demand that is related to the production structure of the clusters. So large brands have led to an unusual situation compared to 3 or 4 years ago. Production concentration has given results. So much so that if products are not exported and export is growing, apart from the volume appreciation, well, this was also a situation in which demand, which is suffering right now, represents the number one issue. And there is a very interesting aspect in this respect. 1 year ago, one of the biggest difficulties for companies was related to the labor force. Finding employees was the number one difficulty. This is now ranking 11.
In 1 year, the performance of the industry changed, first as a sentiment, but also because of the increase in number of the labor force as calculated by the Chamber of Commerce of Arezzo. So the initiatives implemented when the issue was identified because of the lack of labor, the initiatives in the different clusters are, bearing fruits. This type of performance also was the cause for the drop in demand in labor force, of course. So what happened before the elections in the US? What were the difficulties envisaged? What are the possible solutions to be in the US market? Two important things emerged. First of all, a change in price policies. The second, to identify new customers in new markets. This is a common message. The criticalities of the US market, apart from the new role of Turkey, well, the US market historically has been one of the key markets for which people are concerned. First of all, increase in raw materials and the likelihood of new customs duties, which might generate prices which are not competitive against the US prices or in countries where there are no customs duties. As for the second point, finding new customers in new markets means that the US market is no longer a certainty as an export destination. That implies a major change in the organization of companies. Small companies in particular, indeed, have less financial problems or organizational problems to go in other markets. Opening up new production branches in the US, well, limited opportunities. Advancing deliveries are minor issues. What is important? How and where to find new customers. What I gathered when going around the trade fair earlier this morning, indeed, the strategic role of trade exhibitions is confirmed also for the future. Getting international and being competitive, maybe when we have competitors domestically is one thing, but if we consider, for example, China, being there and being competitive is much more difficult. You need to have the right structures, the right skills, and the right financial support. This is something that has to be seriously considered and better understood in terms of future perspectives. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Meritatissimo applauso.
Era per la Sara questo.
Well, you really deserved the applause. Well, tomorrow we'll hear from Licia Mattioli, a legal expert, who will speak about the US market, where they have been working for many years. She will tell us their approach. Often so we hear about monopolies, but also monopsony, i.e. having a single customer might be very dangerous for a company, having a single market or just one market is very dangerous. Tomorrow we'll have Mrs. Corsini speaking of that. Indeed, we will present the analysis of very different and complex scenarios. There are many variables there. It's very difficult to make forecasts. One thing we know, you cannot survive with just one market, because if that market fails, it's a problem. Again, the floor to Sara Giusti, who will get to the core of the focus of this meeting. She will expand on generation change, which is an issue. The large majority of Italian companies are family companies. You know, psychologically, it's rather gloomy. It's difficult to think about generation change within a company. She made an incredible work. She studied the very big data bank with 70,000 companies. Tell us about the situation. What happened in successful and not successful companies in terms of generation change? So 2024 things, you know, the performance holds. Now we are speaking about continuity and competitiveness of this industry. This is still very relevant in this industry. We, you know, saw when companies were founded to the left. In the jewelry sector, the large majority of companies were created in the 80s and in the 90s, and they will have to manage the generation change in the near future. In particular, manufacturing companies suffering more than other manufacturing industries in Italy. That means these are companies managing the first generation change in their history. On the right, we have the community level. In the south of Italy, companies are younger. They were founded later, but maybe because incentives were given to southern Italy. So this is a snapshot of the situation today, showing that the issue is urgent. We also evaluated the average age of the board of directors members. We have companies with plus 65. All the people in the board are plus 65. This is by approximation. That does not mean that there are no young people in other functions, but these are those companies where there is an urgent need to support the generation change. 700 companies, 14% of them has plus 65 members only in the board. Then if the board has less members, most probably they are older. We also consider the most virtuous case, i.e. that of companies where at least one member is less than 40.
This may be representative of a process of generational change. So we're talking about 15% of companies that have this characteristic. So why is it important to introduce young people in the company and to manage the process? Well, let's now have a look at the result in the different companies, dividing them into two categories. We have those companies that have at least a person less than 40 years old in their board. These are more dynamic, they grow more, and their growth in terms of turnover is more than double in the period considered compared to those companies that have a board of over 65. So we are talking about a 35.5% versus a 15.2%. It is not just a matter of growth of the turnover, but also of margins. Already in 2019, these companies had a greater margins compared to companies with boards of over 65s only. And this, which was 3.6%, has gone up more significantly. The other interesting aspect, which is crucial, and it is one of the topics of competitiveness applying to the whole industry, productivity. So our companies try to improve their productivity, and we have summarized this as an added value per employee. And between 19 and 23, we can see the companies with one director less than 40 years have increased their productivity significantly, a plus 10.4%, whereas we have a plus 5.9%. These are significant values. And this also relates to a more evolved strategic profile. I mean, how did they manage to achieve these results? Because they invested. Because they had a different strategic profile, including internationalization, brands, certificates. We have tried to identify all these strategic choices. And all these choices, exports, direct investment abroad, a more evolved form to reach foreign markets. Well, in all these cases, we can see that young people in the board becomes a significant stimulus to make strategic decisions and to adopt a medium long-term vision that is strategic and gives better results. Thank you very much, Sara. Right, so a lot of figures, and now Maria Cristina Squarcialupi, President of Club Degli Orafi Italia and President of UnoAerre, Vice President of Federorafi for Sustainability, President of LASI. I mean, I could go on about half an hour. She's also came as a counselor, but I shall stop here.
Gli imprenditori. Noi abbiamo erogato.
Your task is to tell us what companies believe. So we have asked companies whether they have already started the process of generation change, whether they're interested or not, which is the result of the survey. Well, results are certainly interesting, that are in line with what Sara has just mentioned. Our sample is pretty significant. First of all, our companies have different sizes, different activities, both detail, manufacturing, and tertiary companies. And the sample included in this interview consists almost completely by companies with a family controlling them or a physical person controlling them, 97%, and management is entrusted to the entrepreneur or to a member of the family. Only 7.1% of these companies have an internal manager. And this is only the case of medium to large companies. In no case there is a manager that has been employed and that is coming from outside the company. This is to say that predominantly these are all family-owned and managed companies. The most widespread problems affecting the generational change are the progressive involvement in the management and the direct chaperoning of young family members. One company out of three has decided to focus on external training and external experience. In other words, these young family members have to train and to work in another company first. Right. Sorry. I've just lost myself. Anyway, if we divide the sample by size, we can see that the largest companies make use of tools, dedicated tools to tackle this process, so they're a little bit better organized. Conversely, smaller companies just use informal tools. For sure, large companies also ask for external advice and consultancy. We asked companies whether they already had a succession plan. Only one company out of 3 has got such a plan. And if we divide the results by size, we can see that more than half of small enterprises has no such a plan. So this is a critical issue for small companies that might end up in a critical situation when the change is necessary. What about the consequences of the generational shift? Well, in 76% of cases, we have the role of the family owning the company, and then many fear the fact that the family will play a more restricted role. Once again, this stresses the fact that the family is at the center of the whole process. When we asked which are the main difficulties that characterize the change, well, first of all, resistance to change, but also the transfer of competencies as well as family conflicts, which are 2 critical issues. And this is more frequent in medium-large companies. It is interesting to see that none of the interviewees mentioned economic and financial difficulties, showing that it is more a matter of organization rather than of finance. To facilitate the process, there are several aids. First of all, management training. And here you can see that differences are not so big in the different sizes. Consultancy, that is the assistance of external experts, legal, fiscal, and management consultancy to be able to manage also the family conflicts that rank 4 in this survey. Targets that can be achieved. Well, the number 1 target is to defend competitiveness. Then we have access to new market segments. And then ranking 3rd, we can find environmental and social responsibility. This is even more felt in small companies. So for small enterprises, the generational change is viewed as the opportunity to have access to new tools, all the ESG themes, internationalization, and even expanding the product portfolio. So having young people in the company signifies opening up to all these topics. To conclude, we can state that the generational change certainly is a complex process that is affected by organizational factors much more than by economic ones. Large companies have a greater capability of planning compared to the smaller companies that frequently lack structural resources. And to improve the process, it is fundamental to formalize succession plans, possibly with the help of qualified external experts, and providing specific training. Management training is something that is very dear to many companies. So we used to talk about training and educating labor, but it is also necessary to train and educate future managers. Thank you.
E non dimentichiamoci che...
Well, let's not forget that safeguarding Italian companies means safeguarding the made in Italy, and that's a major issue. Of course it is, but we'll talk of that later. You spoke about family companies and training. That's why we have involved a university professor, Alessandra Tognazzo, a researcher and teacher of family business at the University of Padua and at the School for Managers nearby. Indeed, you are the most suited for the topic. We ask her to speak about something different. What is a family? What is a company? Because indeed families are changing. Thank you very much, Laura. Yeah, sorry, I have to stand because I usually teach. Don't test me, of course. So what are the strategies for the generation change? I'd like to start from the data of research made by a data advisory, collaborating with our center, speaking about company governance. Here, a comparison between companies with sales more than 10 million of the three Veneto regions vis-à-vis Italy, nearly 40,000 all over Italy, 6,500 in the Veneto area. This is to integrate our storytelling. If we focus on the three Venetian regions, we see that out of 5,000 companies, sales more than 10 million euro have a collegial governance, whereas 1.4 have a single governance. That means that the latter are those where the generation change is an urgent matter, as it will be confirmed by other data. This is not only for the three Venetian regions. It shows that the three regions are in line with the rest of Italy. Indeed, considering that in the Rome and large cities area, the plus 10 million sales companies might be slightly different. I decided to focus on gender balance. Here are some numbers which are food for thought. Percentage of women in the board. When there is a single governance, sorry, she corrects herself, 18% for collective governance. The larger the company, from left to here, the number goes down. The larger the company, the lower number of women there are. With a single shall I put that in the masculine or the feminine form? The CEO, in terms of women, we have, indeed, not to forget that it's a male issue, but also women should consider that as an issue. The dynamics are similar. The larger the company, that black bar is not going up. That is the percentage of women, notwithstanding equal opportunities. So let's concentrate on this picture. The involvement of women in managing bodies, i.e. being able to decide on the future of companies, well, women are still at a disadvantage. Generations, age ranges. What we see here is that when there is a single governing manager, the millennials, i.e. those less than 40 years, and the Z generation, they are about 30%. That 27 plus 6. So very low numbers. The largest band is that of people, much older people. Average age, 3 Venetians area and rest of Italy. The average age is 57, 58 years of age. But the most important thing is that research was carried out also the previous year, where the answer was 55 and 56. That means that year after year, these people get older. I mean, if we have plus 2 years every year, what about in a decade? What about the average age of the manager? What is the possible solution? Looking at the future, we should start working as a team. Inclusion is a key word. Family companies are experts because family means that people are united. Not necessarily so. Anyway, as for the future, some questions should be asked. When we speak about a family company and generation change or handing over, when I think about that, which type of family are we thinking of? The idea of a family was very clear in the past. Now, the definition of family has changed. Sorry, but comments of the microphone cannot be translated. We will present the wedding rings. When we spoke about family in the past, we thought about bride and bridegroom and the wedding and the signing of a pact. That was the beginning of the idea of family. Now the definition has changed. Experts say that intimacy is what generates a new definition of family. We see that when we speak about families, by family we mean people living together. All families where there was a divorce with new children, families including young people, or people who are not member of the family, adopted children, and different genders. So the idea of family is changing. Also in terms of geographical distance. Until some decades ago, family shared a geographical community. The darker regions are those where they send the highest number of young persons abroad. That means that children in Italy, for a certain period of time of their life, will not be here.
So we have to understand these new dynamics. That is the fact that the family now is no longer related to a territorial distance. I also found this definition. Family is where everything is connected, also when your Wi-Fi is off. But which companies are we talking about? Until a short while ago, I had a clear definition. When I started studying economics, I knew what I was going to study, companies, and I knew what they were. But things are changing. This provocatory cartoon shows our collective imagination. The entrepreneur relating to the family, making dollars with his enterprise. But this is what we talk about at university today. We talk about regenerative enterprises that are related to nature, that create value for everybody. The paradigm has totally shifted, and the organizational dynamics have totally changed. The Italian civil code is all based on this pyramidal concept. Management through hierarchy. New corporate management books talk about teams, circles. So the definition of enterprise is totally changing. And then the shift. And now I'm going to ask you questions.
Il contrario di morte.
What is the contrary of death? If you said life, you get a very bad mark, because birth is the contrary of death. Oh my God, we are lacking the culture about death. We do not want to think about this taboo, which is something natural in your life. So the generational shift brings us back to this concept. And when we think about succession, we have to make an effort. We should not think about reproducing what has been done in the past and was successful in the past. We should not think about a replacement, but we must start using the term generation, which means allowing young people to express themselves, and the data have proven this very, very clearly. Young people bring positivity to enterprises. Diversity, different ideas. And let's not forget the following. Change is a continuous process. Families do not only experience deaths and births. A family tackles a whole series of changes. Different values, expectations, these things change in time. When your child is 2, well, this child is different compared to when the child becomes 16 or 21. The structure of the family can change, the structure of the company can change. The idea of the company's assets can change. There can be many events. Unfortunately, we all know that there are diseases requiring changes. So working on the generational shift does not mean to work on one specific moment in time. It means creating an organizational system that can adapt in time. And that is based on relations. So it is not just the company as such, but rather the different relations that are observed when there is a big change, but were there before as well. So getting ready for generational change means all this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is a process, so you should not think about it only in that specific moment. You have to be ready, to be prepared. And now we would like to listen to an example of excellence. Dr. Buccellati, I'm embarrassed to introduce you. Having Andrea Buccellati here with us is a big honor. And I would like to thank the director of the fair for being here with us during a day where for sure he's got to do so many other things. Thank you ever so much. But I can see that they reserved a place for you. Cesare Vasogem is another good friend. So, Andrea Buccellati, Honorary President and Creative Director of Buccellati, the second of the three children of Gian Maria Buccellati. Buccellati, as you all know very well, is the Italian Renaissance workshop active in the 21st century. Mario, Gian Maria, Andrea, and now Lucrezia as well, working in the United States. Tradition, culture, excellence in jewelry recognized all over the world for their timeless beauty. The first jewelry shop opened up in 1919 in Milan, followed by Rome and Florence. In 1951, you opened your first shop in the United States, so precursor of internationalization. Please tell us what it means for a company like Buccellati to tackle a generational shift. Well, first of all, thank you very much. And I would like to say that it has been a very important moment that has been prepared in time. Our family had experienced a previous generational shift, the one before mine, that had been pretty disastrous. When my grandfather died, the company was split in two and then in three different parts. And that was very serious because it certainly weakened our company in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s, the boom years, we had to tackle this issue, this weakness phase. With the third generation, we paid a lot of attention to avoid the very same mistakes. And this is why we seriously took care of the issue. Together with my cousin, we reunified most of the company to be able to be present on the market and to tackle the generational shift with a different background. So you also opened up to external investors. Well, the generational shift was shared by the whole family. We are a pretty large family. 4 or 5 family members were working in the company. And I have to say that the generational shift is a very important aspect.
So either you decide to identify the real entrepreneur in the family and freely leave him or her to do that, but there are issues of legacy, of law. So either you give the control to a single person, but when the shift is made, if that does not happen, there will be a lot of discussion. What was important was to find a third party. We were supported by professional advisors, and we found an investor with the creation of stock capital and shares. That was a very well thought decision with some contrast, but in the end we had a very clear vision. The idea was to bring the company to be, at the stock exchange and in the long term, if necessary, to be sold to another company. But our purpose was to be on the stock exchange. And thanks to that, we had the opportunity to have the control of the company within the hands of the family. Then what was the evolution with the financial partners and the investment trust and so on? We were a bit unlucky, but indeed in life you cannot foresee everything. The idea was to have the company quoted at the stock exchange with the same philosophy for the Bulgari company. The person who did that for Bulgari had a trust fund which supported us to do something similar of what the Bulgari family did. Life is sometimes difficult, and the person who really believed in that project and in the brand development passed away in 6 or 8 months. So the investment trust, losing the leader, well, a part of them were in favor, others were not. So in the end, and we were already a minority, we decided to find a different industrial partner to facilitate abandoning the fund. And so we lost sight, in a way, of the idea of the stock exchange and the control by the family and so on. So why did you decide to have Gismond as a partner? You know, the investment trust, well, they are different. Usually they have very clear objectives. Money, first of all, profits. That goes without saying, yes. So I tried to involve major industrial and financially sound partners. We had, an offer from a Chinese partner offering much more than the others. That's why we decided to follow that route. The Chinese partner was not disastrous, but as it often happens with Chinese trust promising major investments and so on and so forth, in the end, there was nothing sound there. So we had a time of difficulty. I tried to reconnect with the most suitable group in the jewelry field, i.e. the Richmond group, and with a tiresome negotiation, in the end, we signed an agreement with them. And that brought about a significant growth. Yes, indeed, if you are supported by large groups, indeed, that has both pros and cons. Indeed, pros are much more than cons. The structure is incredible, no problems financially speaking to implement a growth project, knowledge of the markets, major support in terms of logistics. We, in the past 2 or 3 years, we opened 35 new outlets in the world, in the most strategic cities in the world. So having the Richmond group supporting you enabled you to fight against everything. They already have outlets in shopping malls, and that is indeed a very good help. Buccellati is renowned for the historical style, reconciling old and new. How could you preserve that style? Well, the secret is that of having a family. Every generation, well, there was a member of the family in charge of the creative part, production, design, and so on. That started from my grandfather, then my father. Now it is on to me. I'm trying to hand this over to my daughter. So being within a company where you are familiar with style, savoir-faire, and so on, keeping the brand and the style comes natural. Suppose that we, the creative part, through the generations, would have been in the hands of external designers, I'm sure we would have lost our identity. Now Lucrezia, your daughter, is collaborating with you. What are you doing, for example, in terms of innovation and tradition? She indeed works a lot on design and production with me. She is the first creative woman in the family. Well, we always had males. We like that very much. We like that very much. Yes. That's interesting because she has new idea, new concepts. And most importantly, she helps me understand better the evolution of design and production and the idea of wearability. When I design something, I dream of very important items and so on. And she says, that's nice, but then, I mean, you either you go to the theater or what else? I want something that I can wear every day. That gives me a feeling of lightness and wearability when I draw, and she does the same. She's happy because often so we see wonderful things, and we create a ladder on the stockings and things that you male cannot understand. You all understand that. I'm joking. We would like to ask you, what is your advice to companies during the generation shift? I think that sharing with new generations a very precise strategy. Well, it's that does not happen from one person to another, maybe from one person to 3 or 4 other family members. So they should have a common objective. They should work with competent professionals, helping you to create the theoretical basis for that shift, and then be willing and be aware that something has to be lost. We are used to work with a family and, be the masters of the company. But when you get bigger, you are happy, but you have to abandon some prerogatives that you've always had. Thank you very much, Mr. Buccellati, for your words.
An example of success. Today, talking with Maria Cristina, the president, we said sometimes you learn also from failure. But it is not so easy to talk about a failure at a conference. Who is willing to tell everybody that things did not go the right way? Well, German people should not talk about themselves, but I'm going to tell you my story. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He had a company in Turin, a very big, the biggest company in Turin for industrial cleaning. He was the founder of the company. My father didn't like to be an entrepreneur. He wanted to be a mechanic. His eyes were glittering when he could work at the engine and the motor of a car. He wanted to take care of cars, trucks. He didn't want to be an entrepreneur. So my grandfather unfortunately died very quickly. That was the year 67. And my father had to manage a company. And I have really found all the books of the past. Books like this, handwritten, calligraphic, something really amazing. But my father was not an entrepreneur. And I remember that when I was 14, I said, "Daddy, how can I help you? Teach me. What can I do? I can issue invoices. I can make offers." And I could see that he was suffering. And he said, "Laura, I will always be on your side, but promise you are never going to be an entrepreneur." Because he suffered. That was not his job. He hated it. So right then, I decided to support entrepreneurs in their work. And in the past 30 years, I've been working in associations, but I've understood the problem of solitude. The solitude of the entrepreneur, especially small entrepreneurs who feel abandoned, who feel on their own. But entrepreneurs are never alone. I can see many associations represented here. I can see Stefano De Pascalo of Federorafi. I can see Stephen Tranquilli right there at the back. President Andrea. I can see Stevigi. I can see IEG. I can see Qua. I can see many people, many colleagues. So before giving up, ask for help. Because giving up during the generational shift or being afraid of it means losing. And it is a loss for you and for all your employees. So find the courage to ask for help. And be aware that you're not alone. Somebody will support you. And having said this, let me thank once again Intesa Sanpaolo. Thank you very much. Thank you ever so much. Fabio Manenti of Intesa Sanpaolo. Thank you for being here. And Federica Vitali, Intesa Sanpaolo. There she is. Thank you for allowing us to celebrate. We are celebrating these wonderful 20 years, our first 20 years of cooperation, and there will be many more. So we'll have to retire sooner or later, and Sara Giusti will have to take care of this. But anyway, thank you very much for being with us for these 20 years.